Hello, this is Dr. Pavan Kumar from CG classes and I will teach you biology subject which is there in your intermediate, and it is also the part of the NEET examination, that is competitive exam for medical, and I will teach you the concepts of biology. Now let us start with the pioneer concepts which are there in biology and what actually biology term means. I will start from there. So biology term has two parts, one is bio and another one is logy. Bio is derived from the word bios. It is a Greek word. Likewise, the second part is logos. It is the second part, and together these are Greek words which means bios means living, logos means study. So it collectively means study of living beings. This biology term came in existence from the time of Lamarck. Treviranus and Lamarck gave this term for the first time. In year about 1802, and at the same time Beddoes and Burdach also proposed the same term. They also gave the same term at the same time in year about 1799 to 1800. But Treviranus and Lamarck were the first one to give this term, and in the same way the several terms were given after that. And Aristotle was a Greek philosopher and he belonged to the 4th century BC. He belonged to 4th century BC, who did a lot of work in biology, also tried to classify the organisms. That's why he is regarded as father of biology. Being the founder of this field, he is regarded as father of biology, although he was the philosopher who also did several works in different fields. So now an important term which is used in the field of biology is serendipity. Serendipity is an important term, and how it is used and what is the meaning of serendipity? Serendipity means any interesting outcome by chance. As you might have read about the discovery which was done by Alexander Fleming. Alexander Fleming was working on the strain of bacteria Staphylococcus, and he found some contamination of mold in that. And what happened, that the mold was restricting the growth of bacterial colonies in the petri dish. So he noticed that this mold has some inhibiting factor which is causing the restriction to the growth of bacteria, and at the same time penicillin was discovered. Penicillin is an important antibiotic, so you might be knowing that. So in that we can see that the interesting outcome was obtained by Alexander Fleming, since he was studying about the Staphylococcus bacterial strain, but by chance he got this thing that the mold is restricting the growth. So that's why an interesting outcome came, and which become the discovery of penicillin, and later on it is being used as potential antibiotics. So another important fact that we should know is that in case of invention, you are just creating something that's your own idea that was not existing earlier. That's why it is called invention. Likewise, you can say you are using petri dish in the lab, so it was invented by Petri. You might have heard about the name of Julius Richard Petri. He invented petri dish, although he was working in the lab of Robert Koch, who was a well-known bacteriologist. So it is very interesting, since he is just working as lab assistant in the lab of Robert Koch, who was a well-known bacteriologist, and he invented such a thing which we are using nowadays in the lab. So the name Petri came from that we are using petri dish. The word derived from his name, that is Julius Richard Petri. So he was the person who invented petri dish. So this is called inventions. Since he has created something, so this is called invention. While in this case it is called discovery, because the thing is already existing in the nature, but he was the person who revealed that thing, who made that thing clear to the others in the world. So the people are working with that. So that's why it is called discovery. Now I would like to switch over to biodiversity. So in case you are a student from Hindi medium, you do not need to hesitate and watch this lecture up to the end, because I will tell you so many conceptual things and the overview of biology which will be helpful for you in future. So what is biodiversity? It is also the first chapter in NCERT book, and also being asked in NEET exam, which is for medical preparation. So what is biodiversity? Biodiversity is nothing but the existence of different forms, variety of forms, or richness in the living forms on earth is biodiversity. Richness in living forms or organisms, or variety of organisms in an area. This word came in existence when Walter D. Rosen proposed biodiversity word recently, I think 3 or 4 decades earlier, and from that time it came in existence. In biodiversity, the study is performed for the different type of organisms which came due to evolution on earth, and how different type of organisms are formed. This is the matter of phylogenetics. Let me explain you. So on the earth, that is the atmosphere, when nothing was there on the earth, and the earth formed, I think earth was formed, you should note it down, 4.5 billion years ago. This is the origin of the earth, the time of origin of the earth. Later on, about 3.8 billion years ago, what happened? The life was originated first, and these molecules, or you can say these aggregates, these biomolecular aggregates are called coiservates. Are formed, and later on from coiservates the primitive organisms, or you can say prokaryotes. Were developed, and later on from these prokaryotic cell, you know about, I think you might be knowing about prokaryotes. Prokaryotes are those organisms which do not have nuclear wall or do not have any wall around nucleus. And from them eukaryotes were formed. Eukaryotes means having true nucleus, as here you are saying these do not have nuclear wall. Here the wall is present, a nuclear envelope is present. So you can say having true nuclei. Eu means true, pro means primitive. So eukaryotes are formed. From the eukaryotes, multicellular organisms multicellular eukaryotic organisms are formed, and you have seen that after the evolution, long time evolution, man like highly developed, highly evolved organisms were formed. Likewise in plants, gymnosperms, angiosperms are existing which are highly evolved. So like this evolution takes place, and for that reason we require to study about biodiversity. And for studying the biodiversity, what we require is to classify them in groups, so that we can conduct our study. And such a classification, such the methodology of doing the classification is called taxonomy. So let us proceed on that. These are the conceptual things. From this we will have an overview of biology, which is very necessary. So from the evolution we are getting an idea that how such things are formed, and this basically called phylogeny. If you ask the branch which deals with this particular evolution is called phylogeny. Phylogeny or phylogenetics. This is phylogenetics, which deals with the evolution or evolutionary pattern which leads to the evolution and formation of different diverse forms and highly evolved forms on the earth. Now we can have this thing in the form of classification. Classification also goes like this, and if you will see the trend of study, it is just in reverse form, that earlier people were aware about what? Body. From body, now people got the knowledge of organ and system. Organ system. Later people got the idea of tissues, cells, organelles, and at the last biomolecules. So from this we can see that the evolution of study is also there. The trend of evolution of study is also there, which is going on like this. And if you say Bichat gave the term tissue, likewise cells were actually explained by the earlier work of Robert Hooke. You know that. Likewise nucleus and other organelles were identified in elaborate form when electron microscope came in existence. This was actually the time when electron microscope came in existence. That is about 1931 to 35 by Knoll and Ruska. It was discovered by Knoll and Ruska. From that time the actual, or you can say the elaborate form of study can be performed over organelles of the cell. And later on, now at present time, we are focusing over biomolecules or the molecular aspects of the biology. Now let us go with the classification. In short, because I will tell you so many points regarding biology, in that classification will be the first one. Let me make an outline. We will discuss in short about classification. Second one, some aspects of viruses. Third one, we will discuss about the bioenergetics, how energy is getting formed in anaerobic organisms and higher animals. So we will have a short view about that. And the last one is about the genes, which is just the basic of genetics. So these things we will just take one by one in short form, so that we will have an overview of that. So we will have a clear cut idea about that, because all things are conceptual. Let us see how to proceed with this thing. So in the very earlier times, if you have heard the name of Pliny, he performed some classification. Later on, Carolus Linnaeus, about 18th century, he performed work on classification, and his work was pioneer in that field. And he gave binomial system of nomenclature. He also wrote a book, Systema Naturae. So his work was pioneer. He classified the organisms into animals and plants. But his classification system was artificial. So this is the pioneer work which was done by Carolus Linnaeus, and he was regarded as the father of modern taxonomy. After the work of Linnaeus, Haeckel had given the classification. In year about 1866, and he classified the living organisms into 3 kingdoms, that is Protoctista and Plantae, that is Metaphyta and Metazoa. So after his classification, what happened, that Copeland had given the classification. He classified the living organisms into 4 kingdoms. This will give us an overview of classification. That's why I am going systematically. After Linnaeus, Haeckel has given the classification. Then the second one after the Haeckel is Copeland. By the Copeland classification, it is about in year 1950s. By his 4 kingdoms are there, that is Monera, Protista, Plantae and Animalia. After the Copeland's classification, Whittaker had given the classification, and he classified the entire organisms into 5 kingdoms. He added fungi also in this group, and see Monera, Protista, and a new group, new kingdom is fungi, Plantae and Animalia. I am just giving you an overlook of classification. Later on we will study it in a descriptive way. We will just describe each and everything and see the examples also. But this is just an outline of classification, in what way the animals are classified and plants are classified. So we will have an overview of that with this. So this is Monera, Protista, fungi, Plantae, Animalia. So this is given by Whittaker, and later on this classification came in existence in 1961. Later on, Woese, another scientist, Woese, had also given the classification, and he just classified Monera into two, that is Eubacteria and Archaebacteria. Archaebacteria are the ancient bacteria, and I want to tell you one thing, that these two are important for the NEET exams, because most of the times it is asked that whether Eubacteria is a true bacteria or it is a prokaryote or a eukaryote. So what happened, that Eubacteria is the organism which is a prokaryote because it belongs to Monera. And on the other hand, Archaebacteria used to contain certain rare amino acids like pyrrolysine. If you have read about the amino acids, except the 20 amino acids, 2 more amino acids were discovered, and the 22nd is pyrrolysine. If you want to see one more important or interesting fact is there with this Archaebacteria, that pyrrolysine is coded by a nonsense codon, which is usually not expected, because most of the amino acids are, you can say 20 amino acids are coded by the sense codons, and this one is coded by nonsense codon. And except pyrrolysine, one more amino acid is there, that is selenocysteine, which is also coded by a nonsense codon. So this is an interesting fact. And Eubacteria is a prokaryote. You should remember this thing. It is a prokaryote because it belongs to Monera. So Monera, Protista, and all other things, whatever I have written on the upper side will be same. Now after that, one more classification was proposed. Cavalier and Smith had given the classification, and that was the latest. He gave the classification about 3.5 decades earlier. In about 1987, he gave the classification, and according to them, the entire organisms were classified into the kingdoms that are Eubacteria. They introduced a new kingdom, that is for algae, and the name was suggested Chromista for that. So Eubacteria, Archaebacteria, Protista, and Chromista, organisms that contain pigment, that is algae has chlorophyll, having chlorophyll, A and C. So mostly those organisms are there in this particular kingdom. And now fungi, others are same that we have written in Whittaker's classification, Plantae, Animalia. So earlier we have seen that Monera word was proposed by Haeckel for eubacteria and archaebacteria. Monera word was there, Monera and Protista. These two words were proposed by Haeckel in year 1866. So the archaebacteria and eubacteria both are prokaryotes, while Protista is a eukaryote. Another important thing is that Monera is derived from mono. Mono means unicellular or solitary, single or solitary. So that's why Monera word is there. Protista means unicellular but eukaryotic. So these are also unicellular and eukaryotic. So that's why Protista used to contain those organisms that are like protozoans. Again we can see fungi. Fungi is a heterotroph, while we can see algae. Algae can produce its own food, so it is autotroph. Now another important fact, so let us know what are the feeding habits. Heterotroph, autotroph. Autotroph means self-feeding. Like algae, plants, those have self-feeding. Producers, those are also called producers. Hetero means different mode of feeding. That is, they are dependent on others. And one important fact is regarding their size, that most of the bacteria belong to a size range like 0.5 micron to 5 micron, while you can see plant cell is of larger size, even larger than the animal cell, but the cells are mostly of size range 5 micron, or you can say 10 micron to 20 or 40 micron, you can say, or even 50 micron. So micron, this is the size range of the most of the cells are of size range 5 micron to 20 micron, or you can say 50 micron. So even the viruses are smaller. I will tell you about virus in the future points, but viruses are of size range 20 nanometer to 400 nanometers. Nanometer means 10 to the power minus 9 meter. So we will see that. And one important fact which you should know, and that are being asked in the competitive exam, is regarding that these two, that you can say most of them, just suppose somebody may ask that eubacteria is what? Eubacteria is eukaryote or prokaryote? It is prokaryote. Eu means true, but it is bacteria, so it is prokaryote. And archaebacteria are of 3 types that you must know. These are methanogens, halophiles, thermoacidophiles or thermophiles. Thermophiles are those bacteria that used to grow in hot spring or very extreme hot condition, like benthos of the ocean. Halophiles are those bacteria that are found to be growing in the area where salt concentration is quite high, and methanogens are the bacteria that used to grow in marshy land. So these are the 3 type of bacteria, and this is under the group of archaebacteria. These are under the group of archaebacteria. So this is important fact. And let me tell you one more thing, that taxonomic class is there if you are writing the name of some organism. So what is that? By the concept of Linnaeus, that he gave binomial nomenclature, you need to write the names in this way using the taxonomic method, and by that we need to write the species, subspecies, genus. Just you can write subspecies, species, genus, family. I am just starting from the very lower strata, that is subspecies, will come ultimately at the lower part, that will specify your organism. So subspecies, then species, then genus, then family, order, after order class, class will come under phylum, and above phylum is section, and above section what will be there? Subdivision. It is not essential that every taxonomic class will taxonomic classification will contain this, but this is the proper way of writing, and sometimes you may find subdivision also, division also, that we will see in animal classification also, that I am going to tell you, but we should be introduced with these terms that are used as taxons in the taxonomic way, and that is the art of classification, you can say. So subdivision, division, and above division what will be there? Branches, and above branches kingdom will be there. So kingdom is the major one, and we are going to the lower side. So one must use subspecies also to specify some organism, as you want to say about Cro-Magnon. Cro-Magnon is Homo sapiens fossilis, while human beings are Homo sapiens sapiens. So by this you can just understand. Likewise, if you are writing the name of Java man, you can write Homo erectus erectus, and for Peching man Homo erectus pekinensis. So by this you can specify. A little difference is there, species is same, but still you can make the difference by using subspecies. So it is in our practice. So it is the trend, and this should be in our practice. Now let us see some of the other terms which are important for that. So let us see some other terms which are important for the purpose of competitive exams, and those are, like suppose somebody may ask that diatoms belongs to which kingdom? Diatoms. So diatoms are algae, belong to class Bacillariophyceae. So this is important. Likewise, somebody may ask yeast. Yeast is a prokaryote or eukaryote? It is eukaryote. Why? Because it belongs to class fungi. Fungi is a heterotroph, while algae and plants are producers, that is autotroph. I already told this fact. So it is a fungi. Cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria means, cyano means blue. So it is a blue green algae, and it do not belong to algae kingdom, but although it belongs to which? It belongs to bacteria, that is it is a eubacteria. So it belongs to kingdom eubacteria, it is a bacteria. And likewise the other, like lichens. Lichens belongs to fungi, kingdom fungi. Lichens, you know, it is the symbiotic form of algae and fungi. Here you may find mutualism, that is important. So now these are the terms which are very important for this purpose, and I would like to switch over to animal kingdom. So we must see what the different ways of classifying animals that we can use, and we can now write the classification of animal kingdom. So we will see what ways are there of classifying animals, that different organisms that come in the category of animals, and that are particularly multicellular forms, because eukaryotic unicellular forms are there in Protista, that is Protista kingdom, and now we will see the multicellular forms. That's why it is called metazoa. So these are multicellular forms. Metazoans are multicellular animal forms. This can be classified into three main branches, and that are Mesozoa, parazoa and eumetazoa. So what are mesozoans? Why mesozoa term has come? So meso means in middle. So it lies in the middle of protist and that of multicellular forms, that is metazoans. That's why it is called mesozoa. And these forms are very simpler, having cilia in their cilia over their cells, and these are like Orthognectida, such animals used to come in this particular branch, like, and the mesozoa branch also contains the main phylum Mesozoa. The phylum has also the same name. So these forms like Orthonectida and other animals are just small, very tiny animals, and that used to live in marine insects, or you can say that used to live in, these are just like worms, and that used to live in marine forms that are particularly arthropods that are found in oceans. So parazoa having cellular great body organization. And these are mostly sponges, that is Porifera phylum used to come under this. So the major phylum which used to come under this is Porifera. Likewise, Eumetazoa is again divided into divisions. Let us see what are those. So first I would like to rub it down. Then I would like to switch over on the division of Eumetazoa. Eumetazoa is again divided into two divisions. Two divisions are there. One is Radiata and another one is Bilateria. Radiata has radial symmetry in their organisms at some time of life, or you can say has radial symmetry in their organisms, maybe during some period of life like larval stage or any time. So Radiata are those organisms. So these are particularly like coelentrates used to come in this category, and also ctenophores used to come in this category. So it has two major phylums, Coelentrata and Ctenophora. So these are important phylums of Radiata, and Radiata is a division. I already told you the taxonomy, and each of the rank of taxonomy is called taxon. You must know this, and now we will see what are the phylums that come in Radiata. So Coelentrata contains coelentron cavity in them. Coelentrata means organisms that are belonging to this, or organisms that used to belong to the phylum Coelentrata have coelentron cavity in them. And here Ctenophora, cteno means comb like. So here comb like structures are present, and that's why such animals are called particularly comb jellies. Comb jellies used to come in this category, comb jellies. And here Hydra, Aurelia, etc. So such forms used to come in this category particularly. And Bilateria is again divided into two subdivisions. Bilateria means having bilateral symmetry. The body have the bilateral symmetry. So we have two particular subdivisions. In this, Protostomia and Deuterostomia. protostomia and deuterostomia. Proto means primitive. So here the primitive opening is present, that is the mouth is derived or mouth will be present somewhere near the plastopore during the development, while in deuterostomia the anus will be present near the blastopore and the secondary opening is formed that serves as mouth, that is just opposite to that. So anus will be present near the plastopore. So deutero means having the secondary origin, so the mouth has some secondary origin and it will be formed just opposite to the blastopore. So at that location mouth will be formed. So deuterostomes and proteostomes, that belongs to these divisions, and let us see what are those. I am just giving you the framework of classification. Later on we will discuss it in elaborate form when I will switch over to classification, but presently in introduction our aim is to understand the framework of classification. So subdivision protostomia, again divided into sections, and these sections are acylometa, pseudocylometa, and eucylometa. One thing more I want to tell you, that we can see whether the animal is diploblastic or triploblastic. So the coelentrates and all those that belongs to radiata, we have seen the division radiata, in that those animals used to come that has diploblastic constituent in their layers. So it means they are diploblastic in nature. It means that they have two layers, that is ectoderm and endoderm in their body. But in the case we will see about Bilateria, there the body is triploblastic, means three germ layers are present, that is mesoderm is additionally present together with ectoderm and endoderm. So this is also an important fact that we should know, that most of the animals that belongs to Bilateria are triploblastic. So from here now we are going to the sections after the subdivision of protostomia. So acylometa means no coelom will be present. Pseudocylometa means a false coelom will be there in their body. False coelom and true coelom, there is an important fact about it that I am going to tell you, that eucoelomate means the coelom is formed from the splitting of mesoderm. So that is called a true coelom. When the coelom is partially covered with the mesodermal layer, it is called pseudocoelom, and while we can see that the true coelom is entirely covered with mesodermal lining. So that's why a difference is there, and eucoelomates are having that character, and it is again divided into Annelida, mollusca and arthropoda. So these are three phylums that come in this. So we may understand by their names what are, how the names of the section is there and what may be the properties of those organisms. So by this we have a view that Annelida, mollusca and arthropoda are eucoelomates having true coelom, as I said earlier about the quality of particular this protostomia, which is which we have seen is the part of classification. Now we will see what are the phylums which come in deuterostomes, which are called deuterostomes and come in deuterostomia. So likewise we can write the subdivision. Deuterostomia. It is divided only into two phylums which are major, and that are Echinodermata and another one is chordata. The echinoderm is derived from spiny. Some spiny structures are there on over their body. The presence of spiny structures over their body used to be found. That's why such animals are called echinoderms, and it is called echinodermata. The phylum has name echinodermata, and here in chordata a notochord is present in the body. So these are the phylums, and we may see that protostomia and deuterostomia, here the coelom is schizocilic, while in this case the coelom is enterocoelic. Another difference is that here the division is determinate and the division is spiral and determinate, while in this case the division is radial and indeterminate. So these are the major differences which we may find in this case, that is in protostomia and deuterostomia. So these are the important things that we should notice. Now let us proceed over the classification of plants like this. So we may have a framework about the plant classification also. So as we have seen the classification given by Carolus Linnaeus, and after that what happened, that was the classification in which he classified into Animalia and Plantae, the entire organisms into Animalia and Plantae, but later on the classification was given by Bentham and Hooker. Bentham and Hooker had given the classification, and that was called natural classification. Although the classification which was given by Linnaeus is regarded to be artificial classification. So this is natural classification, and he wrote a book also that is called Genera Plantarum. Genera Plantarum was the book in which he gave the classification of different plants, and also wrote a method for classifying different plants into different phylums and classes, and this was the pioneer classification which was given by Bentham and Hooker in year about 1862 to 1880, and after the classification of Bentham and Hooker, A. W. Eichler had given the classification, and he classified the plants into two major divisions, and that are cryptogams and phanerogams. Cryptogams and phanerogams. Cryptogams are those which have concealed marriage. While in case of phanerogams, exposed marriage, or you can say open or exposed marriage is there. So these are flower or seed bearing. While these cryptogams are non-flower bearing. So cryptogams were classified into algae, fungi, bryophytes, pteridophytes, likewise here gymnospermy, angiospermy. So these may be the subdivisions or groups under which these are classified, and we can see that gymno means, what is gymno? Gymno means naked. So these are naked seed bearing plants, and angio means either blood vessels, or you can say the vessels in which seed is present. So these are the plants where seed is covered. Seed is present within a vessel that is covered within the ovary or carpels. So this is the major difference between gymno and angiosperms. And here we can see pteridophytes used to contain vascular tissues, while bryophytes do not have vascular tissues, and fungi, we know the heterotrophs, and algae that are autotrophs and having thallus. So these are the different groups in which it is classified, and now we will see the further classification. After the classification given by Eichler, there again a classification was given, and that was given by Engler and Prandtl. Engler and Prandtl had given the classification in year about 1886, and they classified the entire plants into two groups on the basis of their floral part complexity into dicots and monocots. And on the basis of floral part complexity. So later on, after the classification of Engler and Prandtl, another classification which was proposed in the first half of 20th century, and it was by Hutchinson. And he proposed the classification on the basis of phylogenetics, that is, phylogeny was the important factor that he considered, and phylogeny means evolutionary pattern, or on the basis of evolutionary history he made the classification how the different parts have evolved, how the evolutionary pattern is associated with the different organisms, evolutionary pattern is associated with different plants. On that basis he did the classification. That was also an important aspect, and Hutchinson classification is on phylogenetic basis. So this is also important, and at last we can see Ostwald-Tippo classification, which came, and it was in year 1942. Ostwald-Tippo had given the classification, and in his classification we can see the plants were entirely classified into Thallophyta, and Embryophyta. Another term is also there, that is Spermatophyta, in which angiosperms and gymnosperms together used to come, and we can also consider them, but here we can see Thallophyta and Embryophyta is there, and in Hutchinson classification we may see that the classification was on phylogenetic basis, and we can write like monocotyledonum, dicotyledonum, and gymnospermy. And in this we can see that according to Ostwald and Tippo classification, we may write Thallophyta, Embryophyta. Two important divisions are there, in which here in Thallophyta all that are algae, fungi and lichens used to come, and in this Embryophyta we may write Bryophytes, Pteridophyta, Gymnosperms and Angiosperms. Like groups are there, and further the phylum will come. If we will write the phylum of Angiosperm, it will be Anthophyta. Anthophyta. Likewise in Gymnosperm we can write Cycadophyta, Coniferophyta, Ginkgophyta, Genetophyta, so we may write accordingly. So these will be the phylums in this. So like this, later on phylums will come in that. So we can see that Thallophyta contains thallus only. Here embryo is not found and no distinct organ differentiation is found. But in case of Embryophyta, embryo will be found and distinct, that is differentiation of the organs, or you can say distinct parts were formed. So this is an important difference. Also there is clear cut alternation of generation which you can find in these organisms, that is Embryophyta. And here one thing should be noticed, that up to Bryophytes, by alternation of generation, Gametophyte stage used to dominate, but after Bryophytes the Sporophyte stage used to dominate. So this is the point that should be noticed. And here you may not find such thing, that is alternation of generation is not that much significant, and here the alternation of generation can be found, and that is very clear, and that is why the division is made. And here thallus like a structure will be present, thallus or filamentous structure is present, and here you may have distinct parts, that you may see that in Angiosperms we have seed and flowers, in Gymnosperms we have naked seed, in Pteridophytes we have vascular tissues, in Bryophytes we may see that capsule and other things are present, and the Gametophyte stage is dominating one. So these are the things which we should study here, and by the term only we can just make a distinction and we make the study, then it will be fruitful for us. Now I would like to switch over the another relevant topic, that is viruses. In viruses we know that virus term is a Latin term, and it means, virus stands for what? Poison. Something which is fatal or very harmful. So that is called poison, or you can call it as virus. So virus is a Latin term actually, and earlier if you will see by history, Ivanovsky was the person who found or who discovered these viruses, and he was studying the disease of tobacco, that is tobacco mosaic disease, which is actually caused by virus, but at that time it was not known. Tobacco studying on tobacco mosaic disease, and it was in year about 1892. He found that there is something which is causing the disease, and he just tried to find out that factor, and so he was the person who discovered viruses. Later on Beijerinck And later on Beijering studied these and also named it as Contagium vivum fluidum. He named it as Contagium vivum fluidum. That is some thing is there in that which is causing infection or which is contagious, means causing infection, and that is virus. So for the first time he gave the term virus as in the form of vivum. So he think must be present in the fluid, which in the extract, something is present in the fluid or extract which is causing the infection. So after that, if you have heard the name of Twert and Hurley, Twert and Hurley, they were discovered bacteriophages. In year 1917. So these are the important facts about viruses, and let us see the important thing which is associated with the term virus and different type of such particles which are there. Now a single virus is called viron. We all know that a single virus viron. Single virus is called viron. Likewise, the terms bacteriophage. Bacteriophage means the virus which infects the bacterium. So it is very important tool in genetic engineering, because the virus which infects the bacterium can be used for the purpose of inserting the genetic material within the cell. Now viroid, another term is viroid. Viroid are very small viruses. As I said, virus usually contain protein as well as DNA or RNA as a genetic material, means protein plus DNA or RNA. DNA or RNA. It may be single stranded or double stranded, depend upon different viruses or which virus strain is there. So viroid are the small single stranded RNA particle which is capable of infecting the cell. And these are smallest. These are smallest. Somebody will ask you which one is the smallest, viroid, virus, virusoid, bacteriophage. These are the smallest. So it is just for knowledge, for sake of knowledge, if you are giving some competition. So single stranded circular RNA which do not code for any protein, but it is infectious in nature. Now likewise virusoid. Virusoid. What is virusoid? It is also single stranded circular RNA, but the thing is that it is called satellite RNA because it used to just incorporate with some other virus for its replication and for having the protein coat. For two reasons, it used to incorporate with some other virus. So you can say just a parasite virus. So this is virusoid. So by this we have the idea, as you have heard about DNA viruses are there, DNA viruses like that of hepatitis B virus. It is a DNA virus, and you can say that coronavirus, all those viruses which are, most of the viruses which are causing flu or HIV virus is a RNA virus. So some genetic material is present in the virus, in the core, and outside protein coat is there. So for that reason viruses are safe, and viruses are the particles which used to lie between living and non-living. That is an important fact. Likewise, if you will say that the Euglena are the just organisms which used to lie between plants and animals, because Euglena contains chlorophyll also, and also have the properties of animals, having the flagella and all those things. So likewise there are some interlink between the two phylums, two systems, or in such classification strata. There are some facts that we should know, and that are important facts. So let us see what are those facts. I have written that in a summarized manner, and that is Alexander Fleming was working on bacterial strain Staphylococcus, in which he found contamination of the mold Penicillium notatum, that I have written, lead to the discovery of penicillin. It was in 1928, that I already told in the lecture, and penicillin G was actually discovered, and also he discovered lysozyme, which is an antimicrobial compound. Penicillium chrysogenum now being used for high yield of penicillin antibiotic. Actually it is in the group of beta lactam. So the beta lactam is now being used as potential antibiotics, and in that cephalosporins are now being used. So that I have written here. Edward Jenner developed smallpox vaccine firstly in 1796. Louis Pasteur developed vaccine for anthrax and rabies. Likewise, Emil von Behring discovered diphtheria antitoxin. And what is antitoxin? That I have written in the bracket, that is antibodies against toxin. So he also got Nobel Prize in year 1901. That was the first one in that field. And Penicillium strain is also used for the industrial production of cheese. Penicillium camemberti and roqueforti, that are two important strains that I have written here. Dear students, there are some key points regarding classification, that is taxonomy. Taxonomy means study of classification. So here I have written that in chronological order, so that you may easily grasp the fact, and that is essential for the studies of classification, or you can say that is essential for studying the classification. And I have written Carolus Linnaeus proposed two kingdom classification, and I just explained all these things in my lecture also, in which we are discussing, but these are the facts written chronologically. So Carolus Linnaeus proposed two kingdom classification in 1735, and he just classified them into animal and plants, and his system of classification was artificial. Another important thing is that he proposed binomial nomenclature to write the name of the organisms. So these are the important facts regarding that. Ernest Haeckel was the person who gave three kingdom classification after Linnaeus. So he proposed Protoctista, which is just similar to Protista, but in Protista we have the unicellular forms, and that contain the unicellular eukaryotic forms, and in Protoctista there are also some simple multicellular forms. So another one is Plantae and another one is Animalia. So he just proposed three kingdom classification. Copeland had given classification of four kingdom, that is Monera, Protista, Plantae and Animalia. So there is a basic difference. In Monera the prokaryotic unicellular forms are there, in Protista unicellular, while eukaryotic forms are there, and Plantae Animalia is already clear. So it should be kept in mind. And now in Whittaker's classification fungi used to come. So what is important about that? That fungi are heterotrophs. I already told in my lecture. Another thing is that fungi contains cell wall, like Plantae has cell wall. So fungi also has cell wall, and some connecting link like Euglena. You may say Euglena, which is just connecting link between that of plants and animals. So it is the unicellular organism. It contains flagella, it also contains cell wall, and also has chloroplast. So these are the important facts that you should remember. So in that, Monera, Protista, fungi, Plantae and Animalia in the classification given by Whitaker. So Woose later on gave the classification. What is meant by et al? That is an important thing. In science, often we used to write this name. Et al means the co-workers who used to work with him during that time. So these are the it is the way to represent the co-workers. So here 6 system of classification was given, and Eubacteria, Archaebacteria, Protista, fungi, Plantae, Animalia were that. And now Thomas Cavalier and Smith gave the classification by that Eubacteria, Archaebacteria. Archae means ancient, and together with Archaeozoa, he also gave one term, that is Archaeozoa. And now Chromista, fungi, Plantae and Animalia. But this thing is important, that Chromista used to contain the class of different algae. So that thing is for remembrance. And now about plant classification, which is important. So Bentham and Hooker proposed the classification, and that was a natural system of classification. Later on, A.W. Ichler proposed classification, and in that plants are classified into 2 subkingdoms, cryptogamy and phanerogamy, and that I already explained in my lecture. Likewise, Engler and Prandtl classification was based on floral part complexity, that is floral part complexity, how complex the floral parts are there. On that basis he gave the classification. And likewise John Hutchinson given the classification on phylogenetic basis, that is on evolutionary pattern or evolutionary trend. And another classification that was proposed by Oswald Tippo in 1942, by that the division was proposed, that is Thallophyta, in which algae, fungi and lichens belong, and Embryophyta that used to form embryo, and in that Bryophyta and Tracheophyta are there, in which pteridophyte, gymnosperms and angiosperms used to come. Tracheophyta means their trachea is there, that is their vascular tissues are present. So these things are there which are quite important regarding classification. And now I would like to switch over to that of biodiversity, which we have discussed, that is the biodiversity which is resulted by what? That I have written on the top. See what is written there, that is mutation and operation of natural selection with fitness results into evolution of forms and diversity. So what is meant by diversity? That is appearance of different forms or the occurrence of different forms within an area. You can say occurrence of different forms within an area. So that thing is important. And why I am talking about such a thing? Because by selection and fitness, only that organism which has better survival will only left. So this thing used to happen during the course of evolution, and mutation was regularly operating, whether it might be by the environmental factors or some biological factor, but that was operating. So due to this course, the organism which has best survival or which has best fitness, due to this course, the organism that has best fitness used to survive. And you often have heard the name of Oparin and Haldane, who had given the chemical evolution theory. And also on the other hand, Darwin is very important, because Darwin gave the theory of natural selection and Lamarck gave the theory of use and disuse of organs. So such facts are there, but here we will confine with the facts, whatever I have written on the board, in order to make you inform about that. Now it is in the form of terminology. What is meant by volant? Volant means adapted to fly. Those animals which are adapted to fly means aerial mode, that used to live in air. Likewise cursorial, adapted to run fast like tiger, and adapted to fly, earlier I told you that term is related to birds. Likewise fossorial, fossorial means adapted to live in burrows. Likewise arboreal, arboreal means live in trees or over the part of the trees. So that is the term which is associated with the mode of life in which the animals are living. Now feeding habits. These terms are somewhat related, that is detritivores, saprophytes and decomposers. So what are detritivores? These are organisms which used to feed on decomposed matter like millipede and earthworm. saprophytes, the organism that is plant and fungi, derive nutrient from the dead and decaying material, decomposers that used to decompose the matter and derive the energy. Likewise, sanguivore used to feed on blood. But these two terms are very important because nutritivores do not use to decompose the matter, but they used to derive the material or nutrients from the decomposed matter. So this thing should be properly remembered. Now distribution. About distribution, we can see cosmopolitan means the organism or species found at most of the places over the world. You often have heard the way of writing that this species is cosmopolitan, means it is found all over the world at most of the places. Now endemic. Endemic means the infectious disease that remain confined to an area. Likewise, epidemic. Epidemic means the disease capable of spreading. See the last one that I am telling, that epidemic means the disease capable of spreading to several regions or part of the territory. But pandemic is a bigger term. It means the infectious disease that is spread across the world. So that thing is important. Now adaptation according to the place or habitat. So terrestrial means on land, aquatic means in fresh water, marine means in sea or ocean, that is in sea or ocean where some sort of salt is present in that. Now halophyte. Halophyte means in salty area. You might have heard the name of Run of Kutch. So those areas salt is present in very large amount. So that thing is there. Likewise xerophyte. Xerophyte means in desert like environment where there is scarcity of water. Now I will tell you those terms that are very important. These are fossils and living fossils. So what are fossils? Fossils means remains of plants and animals present in rock which were lived earlier on earth. The branch which deals with the study of fossils is called paleontology. So now what are living fossils? These are those organisms which are present with primitive characters. The other member of group and close forms were extinct earlier. And the example I have written that are very important is Phenodon and Ginkgo biloba, that is a gymnosperm. You often have heard the name. And now I am telling you about connecting links. So see it properly. Now Proterospongia. Protozoa and porifera is the connecting link between Proterospongia is the connecting link between protozoa and porifera. Likewise, Neopalina is a connecting link between Annelida and Mollusca. Another one is Peripatus is the connecting link between Annelida and that of Arthropoda. And the others are Simoria and Sphenodon. Sphenodon's other name is Tortera. So it is important and it is connecting link. These two are connecting link between amphibian and reptiles. Likewise, duck-bill platypus is the connecting link between reptiles and mammals. These are the organisms which used to live on terrestrial area as well as in marine habitat. Now the next one is Archaeopteryx. It is very important because it is found in the form of fossil and it is the connecting link between reptiles and aves. Its size is about the crow. And one thing is important that it belongs to the Jurassic period and early Jurassic period about 140 million years ago. And during that period it exists and it contains beak and other characters of the reptiles also. It contains beak and like feathers like birds as well as tail like that of reptiles. So it is very important. So another thing is that Archaeopteryx was found from excavation which was carried out for the mines in Germany. From there it was found. And the other thing is that dinosaurs also exist during the same period, or you can say just before the same period, that is in late Triassic period, and that time period was about 230 to 250 million years ago, during which dinosaurs existed on earth. So these things are very important and these are the facts which I summarized here and written properly and clearly so that you might note it down. And now we will carry over the lecture further, and these are the facts which I talked about.